This is Strange New Trek, a podcast about the life and times of Captain Christopher Pike. And now your hosts. Space is really, really big and full of Shakespeare references. Stardate, Season 2, Episode 2 of Discovery, we join the newly appointed Captain Christopher Pike and the crew as they race around the galaxy researching red flares in space. For me, this episode, as of its release, felt the most like an original episode of TOS with a Planet of the Week and a few other elements that are explored. I am your captain, Jeremy Vilmer, and joining us now is my first officer, Chris Noonian-Singh. What's happening, Chris?
What's up?
How's things?
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm in agreement about this feeling like a old-style Trek episode.
Yeah, and I felt it again as I watched it. I actually kind of remembered going like, oh, yeah, at the very least, I like the atmosphere of the episode, if nothing else, you know?
Yeah, plus, this episode is very reminiscent of other things that we have been watching recently.
Oh, it's very true.
As soon as the episode started, I was like, oh yeah, I know what this one is. It's very like Forbidden Planet, very like The Cage in small respects. Probably more like Forbidden Planet since, there are actual settlements they knew about over there.
Yeah, we'll deal with this a little more as we get to the end, but there was an episode of Next Generation called Who Watches the Watchers that the ending part of this really reminds me of. And, I'll launch into that a little bit as we get there. Hey, I got a couple news pieces before we start, though, Chris.
All right.
As of this reading, which is going to be March 11th of 2022, Laurel Goodwin, who played J.M. Colt on The Cage, has passed away.
Oh.
She was the last surviving member of that shoot.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yep. 79 was her age as she went, but... So as you're sitting down to research Christopher Pike and that piece of news pops up, I figured it had to be shared.
Yeah, I hadn't even seen that.
And this week, the trailer for Strange New Worlds came out.
I was going to suggest that we talk about it some, but after I started watching it, there's not a lot to get into, really.
It's a teaser at best.
Yeah. I actually remember when that Fallout 76 trailer dropped, that was like a minute and a half and 2 minutes. That I ended up releasing on Geekish Cast, but we talked about that for like an hour or two.
That's right, yeah.
Just over that 2-minute trailer. So I was like, hey, maybe we could do a similar thing to this, but there's just not enough there to really dig into, I don't think.
No, I kind of eyed it that way too. I was like, well, maybe we could do 5 minutes on YouTube, and I couldn't even see that.
Yeah, because it's just a bunch of real quick things without a lot of context. So I don't even know where we would start. I mean, we could talk about uniforms, but I feel like last week we probably did enough of that for a while.
Yeah, and the things with Strange New Worlds that I'm waiting for are really going to be character based in seeing how they do an episode, a Planet of the Week episode nowadays.
Yeah, if it's similar to this episode we're about to talk about, I'm all the way here for it.
Oh, yeah, me too, because I definitely miss that kind of thing. All right, so let's dive into this one. This episode was called New Eden. It was directed by Jonathan Frakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he has a weird little moment in here that I can't wait to talk about. All right, so Burnham and Pike review Spock's log entry and a drawing tablet Spock has kept since he was a child. The tablet shows the red dots 2 months before they appeared in the sky. Burnham asks Pike where she can find Spock, and Pike reveals that Spock has checked himself into a psych hospital and requested that nobody be told. Pike reveals his father was a science teacher who taught comparative religion, and Burnham considers telling Pike that she saw the Red Angel. Saru calls for Pike to come to the bridge. They've detected a new red signal. The crew messes around with some technobabble, and they realize the signal is in the Beta Quadrant.
The good old Beta Quadrant.
The good old Beta Quadrant. If it can't be Alpha, it's got to be Beta.
That should be a tagline for some crazy
can
product.
Use that, yeah. I guess Alpha Max and Beta Max. I don't know what you'd use it for. All right. This leads to much wringing of hands and clutching of pearls. They could reach it, but they'd have to use the spore drive to do it. And the Federation has said equivocally, no more spore drive.
Equivocably?
Yeah, equivocably. I probably spelled that word wrong. But Captain Pike hand waves this problem away immediately, saying, hey, we got permission to use it during the war. I'm sure we can get permission to use it now. So Stamets and Tilly head off to prepare the spore drive. And Stamets, apropos of nothing, and this I'm sure will never come up again, says he thinks he saw his dead husband the last time he went into the spore network.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I meant to say this last time, but Paul Stamets is named after a real person named Paul Stamets, who is also a mycologist.
Yeah, and he's a real fun guy himself. Hey! We did reflect on, Culber's death, and that Stamets thinks he saw him, and so he's kind of hesitant about going back in there now, right?
Yeah, it seems that way. Watching this today, it just felt like he's got like I don't know, maybe he's not hesitant to go in there, but at the same time he is, if that makes sense. Like, he wants to, but doesn't.
No, you know what? I get it, because like my dad and my grandparents all recently passed away in just the last handful of years, right? And they lived in a little city next to where I live, and I have not driven through that town for 4 years.
Mm.
Just because, it's like, look, I have happy memories, but I don't want to deal with any of them. So I kind of get being hesitant, but not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to get real morose on everybody, but, So one quick mushroom trip later, and the Discovery stops at a ringed Class M world, and it has human life signs on it. Bryce picks up a distress call that they pinpoint to a small village with no signs of technology. They place the arrival of the humans to be about the same time as World War III on Earth. There are roughly 11,000 inhabitants and 10 settlements and no signs of electricity. Because of this, they are considered a pre-warp civilization, and General Order 1, the Prime Directive, applies. The theme of this season is faith, and the crew has a conversation about divine intervention and Clark's third law. They decide to beam down and learn more, and we learned that Owo grew up on a Luddite colony on Earth.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, that it brings back that small snippet of Pike's character from the cage, bringing it forward here to a much more prominent place.
The religious beliefs?
Yeah.
Again, it was a very small thing in the cage that I think they did a nice job of drawing it forward. The comparative religion being taught by his father, little pieces of faith in here. And again, the theme of the whole season is faith, as we'll see as the episodes go on.
Yeah, especially this one.
Yeah. Well, they decided to beam down and learn more. Okay, they were going to bring Owo. And guys, I'm going to call her Owo because I cannot pronounce her full last name. I think it's Owo Sekun, but I am afraid of messing it up, so I'm just going to go with Owo. Now we're going to move on to the B story. Tilly and the Power of Math are experimenting on an asteroid captured in the previous episode. She's advised to end the experiment after a few warnings and a mishaps, but decides Space OSHA won't cramp her style. After extracting a core sample from the Metreon-charged dark matter-infused asteroid, she is caught in a dark matter explosion. Pike, Owo, and Burnham beam down and head into the church. There are stained glass windows with images from several Earth religions. One seems familiar to Burnham. A man named Jacob finds them and asks why they're not working in the fields. Pike passes themselves off as travelers from the north. They are taken to meet the All-Mother, Amisha. Amisha relates the story of the first saved and the angel that brought them here to Terra Elysium.
Yeah, I am still, even though I've seen this whole season, I am still confused by how they got there.
The actual how of it?
I don't remember if it's ever really explored. As far as the appearance of the angel, that obviously gets talked about later on, but as far as them basically getting transported there, and it seems like they were in the church and got transported with the church.
I think that was at least alluded to at the very minimum, But yeah, it's not like she pulled out a red wagon and had everybody get in and dragged it there or something. Or they. I was actually thinking of that on the ride home, on my ride home tonight. I was like, how did they actually get from point A to point B?
This whole scene right here was pretty cool to me. Seeing the stained glass and how they kind of told the story of the first saved and all that stuff. And then even having their own basic New Testament.
Right.
And then even the All Mother title that, that comes from Norse stuff with the All Father and Odin and stuff like that. So you see a meshing of that. And then like at one point, it's later on, but I'm going to talk about it right here. She says, "Peace be with you," which is a very Catholic thing to say.
Peace be with you and also with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And at first I thought Pike's religion may be more Unitarian in nature, but once he just fired that back off, I was like, well, maybe he's kind of leaning more Catholic.
Well, except his father taught comparative religion, so even if he was like a Unitarian Universalist, he would be very familiar, I'm sure, with the greetings and ending of rituals.
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure that just the Catholics use that. I'm sure there's other Protestant denominations that use that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure the Anglicans, the Lutherans, and maybe even the Eastern Catholics probably do the same or something very similar.
No, I didn't think about that fact that he would be at least schooled up a little bit based on what his dad was doing.
Yeah, again, it's just a very interesting thing that a throwaway line from the cage informs in this character now. It's kind of created like this element of his character and a role for his father, just with a real throwaway line from 50 years before.
Yeah, well, I mean, to kind of flesh out the character and still have it based in stuff we already know, it makes sense that they would pull as much as possible from that little bit of stuff. But it's been interesting to see how they bring it forward.
Yeah. No, it's kind of interesting, and it does, as it develops throughout the season, I really enjoy how they've done what you used to do and really draw a lot of topic out of a very small thing,
I've been having trouble doing that on this because these episodes, we've both already seen them all. So there's like not a lot of room for a bunch of speculation and stuff. It just wouldn't feel natural if we tried to dance around the fact that we already know what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, if we just had to pretend like, oh, what's going to happen next week?
But I think once we get into the new show, it'll come out a lot more.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the crew learns that there's a camera from a soldier back during World War III that no one can fix and that they have been trying to get power to the church. Pike asks if he and his gang can shelter in the church for the night. Tilly wakes up in sick bay with a pain in the butt ensign doting on her. Tilly tries to get up, but then Saru and the doctor enter and give her the what for that. So Saru starts to tear into her a little bit, as much as he can, for being careless in her experiments. She explains that she was trying to find a way that they could interface with the spore drive without having to put Paul Stamets through the ringer every time they do it. Saru relates to Tilly because she's the youngest person to ever be allowed in the command training program, and he's the only Kelpian to ever be let in. So he really kind of identifies with her in a way.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, plus he's had to rise to the occasion a couple times and doesn't want to mess it up.
Mm-hmm. Nope, that's just it, I actually met Doug Jones at a convention one time. A real interesting guy. The guy that plays Saru.
I just know that he's super tall and skinny.
He looks like an alien when he walks in the room.
Does he walk like Saru does?
No, not quite. Doug Jones is a very interesting guy, and if you ever want to play a fun game and you're at like a con or something and he's there, what you do is look around and try to imagine who would be a secret alien in that room, and it's always Doug Jones. It's always Doug Jones. Saru is then called to the bridge. He learns that the outer rings of the planet have increasing levels of radiation, and this will lead to an extinction level event on the planet. They have about an hour until a nuclear winter hits, and they can't beam the away team up because of the increased radiation. And also, if they try to use there's a line in there about trying to use a shuttle, and it would cause like a meltdown or something, a feedback on itself and make it even worse. So now we've got our rising event here, the bringing up of the tension as the story gets better. Our crew heads into the church with the desire to shut off the distress call in hopes that no one will bother the settlers again. Pike and Burnham discuss if that's a good idea and if the Prime Directive actually applies in this situation. I would say that it doesn't, but that's just me.
Well, I was thinking about this too. I don't think the people on the ground know that the planet has like an hour to live.
No, they don't.
So this whole conversation would be moot if they did know. Because why bother? You're going to be gone in an hour anyway.
Exactly.
But then again, with Burnham's character, she wouldn't let that happen anyway.
No, she'd probably shoot her own captain and then find a way to get at least 3 of them off the planet. I got some questions about her judgment sometimes, but you know. Jacob enters and tells them that he has kept the distress call going because he believes other humans are still alive and on Earth and that life there hadn't ended. So we discover now that some of these people even know that they are on a different planet and they have assumed that human beings are probably flying about in space by now.
You know, his family came from scientists, and so they would probably be way less religiously inclined than the rest of the people that they came with. So it makes sense that while they may not try to stir up trouble among everyone, being the non-believers in the group, it makes sense to me that they would do basically what they did and pass on their knowledge to their kids and just keep that a secret, just to keep the community operating smoothly, I guess.
So Jacob, you know, he has this conversation with them, and then he swipes their gear and uses, was it stun grenades? Is that what it was? I'm thinking it must have been stun grenades.
Yeah.
And takes off. So, you know, after they kind of get their bearings back, Owo manipulates the locks, it sets them free. But then Pike, for some reason, brings up now that the Prime Directive is still going to apply.
Except now he's got all that tech, so what would even be the point again? What's the point?
See, that's what I'm having trouble with in this episode. So Tilly and her friend, the Power of Math, and her weird little other friend come up with a way to save the day. Tilly formulates a plan using the asteroid. She then runs the bridge Scooby-Doo chase style. Did you notice this? That she comes out of sickbay, heads one way, and then is shown in the same shot to be running from the other direction. So Jonathan Frakes did a little Scooby-Doo chase here.
I didn't even notice that.
Well, if you ever watch it again, keep your eye out. So she runs up to the bridge, shares her plan, and talks about donuts, because, I don't know, Tilly likes donuts, I guess. Detmer isn't sure that she can pilot the pattern needed, but Stamets offers to spore jump them in, and then Detmer can take over from there. Back on the planet, Jacob tries to convince the All-Mother that the gang is from the old Earth and has a spaceship. Pike shows up and says otherwise. Owo notices a child playing with a phaser, and it goes off. Pike jumps in the way and is shot in the chest. Jacob implores them to use science to heal Pike, but Burnham says they should go to the church and pray. Stamets jumps the ship into position so Detmer can donut hole the radiation. I have no idea why donuts are still a thing. Tilly sees her weird little friend again and is called the childhood nickname by the mysterious ensign. Owo and Burnham take Pike to the church, and just as Jacob comes in, they are beamed away. The All-Mother says it was the angel. Pike is injured but will live. Tilly looks at the childhood friend, and that she's pretty sure is that ensign, and discovers that she's been dead for a few years.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me when I first watched this. I was like, it caught me off guard.
Yeah, me too. I was like, well, what in the heck? Because it has a very, it feels non-Star Trek-y until you get to the explanation.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think we're with this character for another episode or two, if I remember right.
Yes, we are.
Which, she's only mildly annoying in this one, but as we get further in her arc, she just gets straight aggravating. And I'm happy to see her storyline resolve.
Yeah, they get all Spinal Tap and dial her ass up to 11. She is annoying when it gets going.
I mean, it seems like that's by design, though, because that's the kind of kid she was.
Yeah, but, that doesn't keep me from being annoyed at all. Just because they did what they were trying to do doesn't make it less annoying.
No, for sure. But, I mean, especially when I was about to say, especially when you consider, Tilly's, obviously this is at least in some part, based on Tilly's memory of her old friend. So it would make sense that the whole personality is still of a little kid. But the fact that she's shown up like basically a grown-up, that was a little weird.
It is an interesting way to do what they did with this character here. So Burnham and Pike kind of discuss what's going on, and Pike decides to beam back down to the planet and talk with Jacob. And he tells him the truth. And then he gives Jacob a power cell. I guess is going to last for 100 years or something from the sounds of it. And Jacob gives Pike the camera, the soldier's camera from World War III. Pike beams back up. Jacob restores the lights to the church.
Yeah, I actually like this scene a whole lot too, because Jacob's like, you know what? Shutting it down. That's all I needed to know. We're good here.
Yep. He's like, okay.
I don't need nothing else from you.
Yeah,
cool.
My theory's been proved. All you had to do was say yes, and I would have been cool, you know? So Pike watches the camera, and he sees the Red Angel. So this Red Angel character keeps coming back now. We're getting elements of it from different places and different times. Burnham has seen it. Pike has seen the video of it. The people on this planet were saved by it.
This one, I guess they're kind of saved by the Red Angel twice.
Yes.
Because, I mean, at least that's what it's implied. The fact that Red Angel beamed, I guess, the church to a totally different planet, World War III era. And then, again, with the signal that the Discovery finds. Yeah, I'm going to have to make note of my question here about the whole thing here, just so when we get more further in the explanation for the Red Angel, we can revisit that topic.
Yeah, because I'm still, at least at this point, and you know, we'll see what happens as we go through the second watch through or whatever. I still have questions about how all this shakes out.
Not necessarily the signal that the Discovery runs into, but just the World War III stuff.
Yeah. There's a couple things that, like, this episode... Well, you know, discuss with me for a moment, because I still don't get how the Prime Directive would apply to this group. I realize that we totally get rid of the tension of the episode, and that, you know, that would suck, but...
It is a little weird. I mean, because they are human. They're not some alien species they're just running across for the first time. But I think Pike's right initially in his judgment that the Prime Directive applies. They don't really have a right to go in there and, well, I mean, Burnham does make a good argument against that too, which kind of makes sense also. You know, I don't know where I really fall on this, because they both give good explanations, at least in the moment that they give them. Obviously, as the episode goes on, Burnham ends up being right. But very initially, when Pike says that, I can see both his argument and Burnham's argument for maintaining the Prime Directive or not.
Yeah. See, now, for me, part of what makes this much more like a TOS episode is the dilemma is morally based. How do you see it? It's not like modern storytelling where every antagonist has to be a villain. Sometimes an antagonist can just be the situation.
Well, which it is here.
Yeah. Where they're trying to decide on a really thin line what the rules are that they're going to apply here. And, you know, I guess in this case, I guess I would go with storytelling, and storytelling says you have to have a conflict, as thin as it is, you know.
I don't actually think much changes if the Prime Directive is discarded, even at the beginning, because they're still about to die in an hour.
Yeah, I guess you could introduce that as the inciting moment or the inciting incident.
I don't see the Prime Directive mattering a whole lot. I mean, you're right, it does provide a little bit of friction, especially among the landing party, but other than that, like, I don't think the story is different, except for maybe, you know, Jacob packing up a little earlier, but and plus those people, especially the All-Mother character, she's such a believer that it wouldn't even matter.
No, she could have seen the spaceship and she'd have been like, yep, angels.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what would have happened. Again, I understand both their arguments and the time that they made them for and against it. They actually went to the most advanced colony on the planet, because the other ones weren't even using electricity at all. I guess in this case, the only electricity was the signal.
But still, I mean, that's something. There's a distress signal down there, and I would have to wonder, you think Captain Pike is leery of distress signals that seem like they're coming from weird places?
I mean, to be fair, it wasn't the distress signal that got him there.
No, you're absolutely right. They happened to find it once they got there.
But yeah, now that you mention that, I feel like they could have at least had a throwaway line about that.
Just like like a cringy, like, I just don't know about distress signals anymore. That's one that stands out to me as like something that they could have at least done a little something with.
Yeah, especially given the fact that, like we already said, they pull out one line from the cage and like make this a prominent part of this man's character, at least in this episode.
2 generations of his family even, So, Chris, did anything in this episode make you want to pick nits at all?
The main thing was the how they got there in the first place. I cannot recall at all if that even gets explained. Maybe it does. I even was looking around on the wiki trying to figure out, I didn't spend a whole lot of time doing it, but just a cursory glance of the wiki and then clicking through a couple of the pages, I didn't really see anything that answered that question.
Maybe at some point I'll have to go back and rewatch and see if anything comes up. Yeah, that bothered me. Like I said, I even thought of that driving home tonight. I was just like, how in the heck did they all get there? Because, it's like that. And, what were the Telosians going to do with humans once they had them? What was the overall plan here, people? Those kind of got to me. And the Prime Directive thing got to me. That's about it. That's not bad for an episode of Star Trek.
No, I mean, like you said, Burnham sometimes has some questionable decision making, but I don't even think it was terrible in this.
No, I was going to say not in this particular episode, though.
Although, this is like the one time she follows orders.
We've been watching her for like 15 episodes now, and now she's like, yep, I'll just go along with whatever you say, Captain. I've never done that before, but today I'm feeling different about things. Oh, yeah. Overall, I like this episode. Like I said, it gave me a good, like, old school Star Trek feeling. Like, not a great episode, but it felt like Star Trek.
I remember, I probably mentioned that to you when I was first watching through this second season. I felt the same way both last time and this time watching this one. It really did feel like an episode of the old series.
Yeah, it really did for me as well. Do you remember the episode of Next Generation where they find the Vulcan-like people that are about Bronze Age or maybe a little after, and they're just starting to switch towards logic, and the Federation outpost gets discovered, and they all begin worshiping the Picard?
I have a vague recollection of that, but I don't remember anything specific about it.
Yeah, and the only way he can prove to them that he's not a god is to die, so he lets one of them shoot him in the chest with an arrow. This episode gave me, not super over the top, but it really reminded me of that kind of element from that episode.
Well, especially when Pike is, before they ever get down there, doing the alternate version of Clark's Third Law. Any advanced ET intelligence is indistinguishable from God.
That is very true. And yeah, so, all these things together, I did enjoy it. So that's going to wrap up New Eden. Chris, any idea where we're headed next week?
Yeah, next week we're going to talk about Pike investigating a murder in a Grand Barracks. His younger sister is set up by a bloodthirsty time traveler, and with the help of an alcoholic sentient fluid, he must choose between long life and integrity in order to avert disaster.
That sounds amazing.
Right.
That sounds like a great episode. Well, everybody, if you like what you heard or didn't like what you hear here, head on over to strangenewtrekshow.com and let us hear from you. You can leave voicemails. You can reach out to us on our social media. Love to hear what your thoughts are. All right. Hey, first off, I want to give a big shout out to Miguel Esparza, who wrote our theme song. His band, Archaic, actually had a new album hit everywhere today. Spotify, Amazon, whatnot. It's Archaic with K's instead of CH's. Go check them out. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. We do appreciate it, and we will see you on the next Planet of the Week.